With marijuana use now legal in a number of states for recreational use and an even larger number for medicinal use, it's kind of weird to think about how revolutionary and against the grain that stoner humor used to be, and you can't say stoner humor without instantly thinking about Cheech and Chong. So today, we're going to check out some of their greatest hits and see if continuity is one of their best buds or if their timeline is skunked.
Hey.
Oh, hey.
What are you doing?
I'm doing the Cheech and Chong video.
So that's like your joint? You're pretending like you're smoking a joint?
Well, yeah, I thought it'd be funny for the video.
Okay. Or you could just like smoke. Because it's like legal and it's cool.
Even though they were vastly popular due to a series of successful comedy albums, the pair started their film success with 1978's Up in Smoke. Chong is Anthony Stoner, whose family is rich and threatening to send him off to military school, even though, Tommy Chong was 40 years old at the time of filming. Cheech plays Pedro in his trademark outfit, and he's from the complete other side of the tracks, but the two end up meeting on the PCH and share a little joint. They end up getting arrested together, but are released when it's discovered that the judge is drinking on the job, and then they go to visit Strawberry, who just got off the Nostromo. Or wait. They say he's a Vietnam vet, so it's not too long after that, so it is clear that we're set in the late 70s, and Stacy Keach shows up as a drug-raiding police officer, which is kind of the definition of irony. They accidentally get deported, which apparently happens to Cheech a lot in his movies, and there's apparently a new method of making solid objects out of marijuana, and a chalkboard shows delivery dates of April and May, and the boys end up in a van made of weed. A shot of the van's license plate shows us that their registration expires in November of 77, so we're most likely in early 77. Plus, Star Wars is in the theater, so 77 is our best bet, although movies were in the theaters much longer then. They end up at a battle of the bands at the Roxy when there's a quick cameo and the very first film appearance of a young Ellen Barkin. They perform as Alice Bowie with their hit song Earache My Eye, which I've actually karaoke'd once, and I would recommend doing it if you get the chance. It's pretty fun. The van burns up, and the boys win the contest, getting a record contract. 2 years later, in 1980, Cheech and Chong made their next movie, which was titled Cheech and Chong's Next Movie. The boys are back, and Chong is wearing a vest that says Chong on it, seeming like they're playing themselves now, and possibly different characters than Pedro and Man. So it is possible that this is a new continuity, but also possible that they're the same and just using new nicknames, although Anthony is no longer seemingly part of a rich family, but then again, that was literally only a thing for one scene in the first movie. I know that they had a record deal at the ending of the last one, but come on, look at them. Just assume that they blow it. Cheech works at Universal Studios along with Jambi and Elvira and Phil Hartman's Chin, and Body by Jake, I guess, is the Red Hulk, way before Red Hulk was a thing.
And yes, non-comic fans, Red Hulk is a thing.
There's just a string of kind of unconnected shenanigans, and including the first film appearance of Michael Winslow doing what Michael Winslow do. And being there with Peter Sellers is in the theater, and that came out in 1979, so that's probably when we're set, making this 2 years after the first movie. P.W. Herman shows up in one of his earliest roles, and Cheech plays a dual role as his own cousin Red. Again, there's no storyline here, it's literally just a series of goofy scenes, and at one point incorporating Chastity Pariah, and Paul Reubens appearing as Pee Wee Herman, the character's first film appearance. This license plate has an orange sticker which expired in 1980, so 79 still makes sense, but it could be early 80 as well, but the plate is OU812, which is weird because apparently that showed up in several places before being the title of the Van Halen album, which was reported to be a response to Lee Roth's Eat 'Em and Smile, but maybe it wasn't. The phrase also apparently appeared on the show Taxi, so it must mean something else entirely as well. Adding to the randomness, the ending of this movie actually has aliens, and this is probably the most chaotic thing I've seen in a long time. It ends with Cheech doing space coke and flying into a giant reefer. So in the final analysis, is this connected to Up in Smoke? Ultimately, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. They're basically the exact same characters, except that they have different names. Names that they don't even really say, so there's no contradiction, really. Chong does say that his dad was Chinese in this one, and we see his dad in the first one, and he's clearly a white guy, but that could also have been a stepdad, or he could have been adopted, or he could have just been really high and making stuff up, since his character seems really prone to telling stories anyway. So I say that yes, they're in continuity, whatever continuity means, in this random universe. The hits kept coming, and a mere 1 year later in 1981 we saw Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams, and the boys now have an ice cream truck, and Chong still rocks the guitar, and they sell pot out of the truck. Stacy Keach is back as Sergeant Stadenko, our first bit of continuity in the entire series. The fact that he's following Cheech and Chong as persons of interest seem to indicate that they're the same characters as Up in Smoke, and the fact that he's a pothead now might be because of the truck incident at the ending of that movie. And Noodles might be familiar if he were wearing the looker glasses, and his partner is Gilbert, who's also missing his magic glasses. CNC apparently made a ton of money between movies, as they now seem to live in a huge Malibu house, which could be a nod back to the notion that Chong comes from money, although apparently their weed turns people into lizards if they smoke enough of it. And then they just have a series of misadventures, running into Ms. Renee and a young Linnea Quigley. And then Pee-wee's back, and so is Donna, and it's pretty clear that PW is a different character, but Donna has the same name and claims that Cheech was an old boyfriend, so I think it's pretty clear that she's the same. And even though a lot of people think that Cheech and Chong are new characters in each film, I think that this is a clear link to the last one. Even though Cheech says that he went to high school with her, although they dated just a year or two ago, but a side effect of marijuana is memory loss. He says they were supposed to go on a date, and then she vanished, which does line up with the last film as well. Cheech takes advantage of a passed-out Donna and even asks the audience if it's okay to sexually assault someone.
Well, let's put a vote to it, man. How many guys would do it?
We said no, but he didn't listen to us.
And then, full frontal Chong Dong. Donna is then kind of disturbingly assaulted again by a big biker guy, so it's really not a good night for Donna. And they say that they've been dealing for 6 months. And there's a check here, but the date is maddeningly left blank. And then they end up in an insane asylum with Sandra Bernhard, and they lose all their money. But Michael Winslow is here too, as is Timothy Leary. Stadenko goes full lizard while the boys lose all their money somehow and end up as male strippers. Since there's no real visible date in this one, but we know that it's at least 6 months later, we're going to place it in real time 81, which gives them 2 years from the last one to get their act together, become dealers, and make a ton of money. The very next year came 1982's Things Are Tough All Over, and of course, the boys are back. Bottomed out once again and no longer strippers. They're actually in Chicago now in the winter, so some time has obviously passed, and unless you want to think that they're different characters, but it's not too crazy to think that they ended up there after the last film. This plate says 79 on it, but I don't think that's a date, and they're trying to make another band, and their bosses are 2 Middle Easterners, also played by Cheech and Chong, with French girlfriends played by the duo's real-life wives. Proctor is here, and the boys are paid to drive a limo to Las Vegas, and they go cross-country, having adventures, and they pick up a hitchhiker who just so happens to be Donna. They all know each other, so, I mean, you have to figure it's the same Donna. So I think that locks it in as being the same characters. But again, I guess that's all up to interpretation. But I think that it's a clear indication of an intention to keep some sort of continuity. Fred's here, still working out in the desert, and the boys lose all the money that was in the car, so the bosses come after them, and Jambi rolls out the red carpet. They end up meeting Rip Taylor,
Wow.
and his plate has a white sticker on it, which was the color on Nevada plates for 1982. So that looks like our year. 1 year after the last film, probably earlier in the year because of the weather in Chicago, and they say that it was the coldest day of the year, so possibly February. The guy that Alanis Morissette wrote You Oughta Know About pops in, and probably in the weirdest turn of events, their tryst with the French girls, which was like a day or two ago, has been turned into a porn movie and has been developed, edited, and shipped out to adult theaters in a finished form.
That is a record turnaround time in the pre-digital age.
Slimane and Habib then decide to force the boys to become porn stars, and that's the end. So I guess it's a happy ending. Just one more year passes, and in 1983 came Cheech and Chong, Still Smokin', and the movie starts with an answering machine where Cheech calls himself Cheech, one of the few times someone gets a spoken name, but he also blows a kiss to Donna, again linking him to previous incarnations. The boys head to Amsterdam for a film festival, and I guess they've confused Cheech for Burt Reynolds, and there's a poster for Best Little Whorehouse in Texas there, which came out in '82, so we're at least past that. And then we get into strange territory here, since they proclaim to be Cheech and Chong and sign autographs, so it looks like they're playing themselves, as actors who appeared in the previous films, probably pulling them out of that universe and placing this film in its own continuity in real life, as it would be hard to reconcile them being known as film stars with a history of films within their previous adventures. As for the Donna message, I would say that there was a real-life Donna that Cheech based the character from the previous films on, and then they have a series of adventures around Amsterdam, parodying E.T. at one point, which was another movie from '82, while they try to think about skits to perform on stage at the festival. There's an appearance by Cheech's redneck character that they modified into next movie, and Blind Melon, who's, I guess, a Chong character in, blackface. And then the very next scene is making fun of gay people. I mean, what can you say? It's the 80s. There's another Linnea Quigley cameo, and then Cheech, in a skit, says that it's Dope-a-thon 82. So this one is set in 82. Basically, the same year as Things Are Tough All Over. But again, this is in the real world as opposed to the film world. Cheech gets his own black-faced appearance, and it never really goes anywhere. I mean, more so than usual. And I have to say this, as a Cheech and Chong fan, someone that really enjoys the movies, I mean, I went to go see them live on their reunion tour. This is a really hard movie to get through. Forget the fact that it's more mean-spirited than usual, with way more racism and homophobia. It's just not that funny. The whole last 20 minutes of this one is just their stage show, so it's kind of like they just gave up and made a concert film. 1983 also saw an appearance by the duo in the film Yellowbeard, which was sort of a roundabout Monty Python film, and the two appear throughout as the film's villains, and both meet their ends. Cheech threw a sword in the belly, and Chong knocked into an acid pit. Things took an interesting turn after that, since 1 year later saw the release of the last regular CNC film, 1984's The Corsican Brothers, which was their first film outside of the stoner film genre. It starts in France with Los Guys, and they seem to have very different personalities than before, so I guess it's probable that they're new characters here? Chong's daughter, Ray Dawn, is here and tells them a story set in French Revolution, so I guess the 1790s is when that would have happened. Twins are born, which each having a different father, who are then raised as orphans, but when one is hurt, the other actually feels the pain. They get separated and are reunited right before the French Revolution and face off with the villainous Fouquet, and both Shelby Chong and Ricky Marin reappear. Edie McClurg is back too as the Queen, and then there's a series of escapades, mostly involving lowbrow humor without their usual satirical wit. It's strange because during this time in their careers, Cheech was the one that wanted to get away from what they were doing and expand into regular comedy, while Chong was content with what they were doing, although Tommy is the one that actually plays a different kind of character here, and it's definitely weird to see him playing the straight man. The jokes are as stale as Chong's baguette nunchucks, and it's pretty harmless. It is amusing and all, but it's definitely not very memorable. There's a final battle and a big explosion that saves the day, and the brothers decide to go to America to start a revolution there, even though the Revolutionary War actually took place before the French Revolution, but we may be seeing the early days of it here, and the film may be set in the early 1770s? As for the intro and finale, it's most likely that this metal guitar guy and Elvis-y singers are new characters, but it's certainly possible to fit them into continuity, especially considering that they're called Los Guys. Considering the last time that we saw the film characters was back in Things Are Tough, this could just be 2 years later in Real Time 84, and the boys went back to Chicago, worked off their debt to the Arabs, and then formed yet another band heading out on tour. Their personas aren't too far off from how we've seen them before, so if you want it to fit, it certainly can. 1985 saw an appearance from the duo in Martin Scorsese's After Hours, playing a couple of burglars named Neil and Pepe. It's kind of a small role, and they're basically just playing themselves, but it is nice to see them in a more highbrow affair. The same year also featured the release of Get Out of My Room, which was a new album from the duo, and they released an hour-long video to go along with it. It's not really a movie, more of a collection of music videos and skits along with a mockumentary-style behind-the-scenes wraparound, and it doesn't really fit into their film universe, but it was the final time that they worked together in a film capacity outside of cameos for quite a while. So at this point, the two went their separate ways, as Cheech was interested in making straightforward mainstream comedies. He did so with 1987's Born in East LA, based on a song that they did on Get Out of My Room. Cheech wrote and directed the film and plays Rudy, who's basically, Cheech, and he gets accidentally deported to Mexico and has to spend the rest of the movie proving that he's actually from America and getting home. And also featured Daniel Stern and Paul Rodriguez and Ian Michael Vincent. It's genuinely enjoyable and pretty damn funny, although way more traditional than you'd probably be expecting and lacks the subversive nature of the team's earlier efforts. 3 years later, in 1990, Chong has his first solo outing with Far Out Man, which he also wrote and directed. It also has his wife return, as well as his daughter, as Tommy plays a very Chongish hippie character, finding his long-lost family meeting his son, played by Paris Chong, Tommy's real-life son. Cheech also makes a quick cameo, appearing in Far Out Man's truck, and yeah, it's okay. Feels like a late 80s comedy, has a bit more in common with the pair's comedy style than Born in East LA, but it's still, I don't know, it's missing something. Throughout the 90s, they pretty much appeared in stuff separately, and although it seems like they didn't quite hate each other, they really weren't interested in working with each other until the 2000s, although a plan to reunite was derailed by Tommy's jail stint for conspiring to distribute drug paraphernalia, and he served 9 months in prison, where apparently his cellmate was the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. When released, the duo tried to reunite with a film, but it never got off the ground, and instead went on the Light Up America tour in 2008, which is the one I actually got to go to. And while they still haven't formally made a new film, they did appear in Cheech and Chong's Roasted, which was just a roast special of the pair, and 2013's Cheech and Chong's animated movie. Sadly, instead of a new adventure, it's just new versions of some of the skits from their old albums, including a new version of Earache My Eye. But if you were looking for new mayhem, you're gonna be disappointed. They've been pretty absent from the scene for a while as a pair, especially since they've said themselves that it's harder to make stoner humor now that it's no longer considered rebellious, with weed being legal in most places now.
So there you have it. That is a lot of movies. I mean,
And a lot of marijuana.
and a lot of marijuana use in that movies. Continuity kind of doesn't really mean anything in these movies, but it sort of does if you wanted to. I understand the notion that they're probably supposed to be different characters in each movie, but let's face it, they're always playing themselves, and as we're likely to do on this channel, if we want to make it make sense, we will make it make sense. That's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this this little trip through Cheech and Chong land. I know I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, although some of the movies I enjoyed less than others. My memory of some of them was a little rosier than I recalled them to be, but all in all, a pretty damn good time. You can't go wrong with Up in Smoke. Up in Smoke is absolutely one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. But
remember, they're always funnier if you partake in the subject matter.
That is probably true. I can't admit to knowing that. But if you enjoy these, let me know down in the comments. Leave us some comments about Cheech and Chong and your favorite stoner movies. And of course, hit the like button and the subscribe button. Do all that stuff. Check out my patrons because these guys do help keep the channel going, and they actually help me buy her lots of pot. So go to patreon.com/movietimelines and help contribute to that. And for all you guys, I hope you just keep on watching these videos, and we'll see you very, very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.